classic American cartoon from early 666.
Indie animation has been dominating the industry for quite a while now in the past few years, yet it's been around since the dawn of the internet. It's quite incredible that we see earlier simple webtoons like Ed's World, Battle for Dream Island, and Homestar Runner evolve into much bigger and ambitious projects that help shape the industry, some of which moved on to become actual network-affiliated shows like Has-Been Hotel. In fact, that show, along with a few others, sprung the new age of animation regardless of any support from major studios like Disney or Warner Brothers. And given how they've treated their animators like shit recently, it's no surprise that there would be serious blowback to the decisions they make, such as canceling projects they've worked hard on and protests from unions and advocacy groups such as Animation Workers United. Indie animation challenges that fault by being their own boss. They don't rely on executive decisions and instead create whatever they want with the motivation built for it. And with the integration of sites like Newgrounds and Tumblr to YouTube, an even bigger profit was meant to be made with a larger community that would support their work. Since the release of The Amazing Digital Circus and the influences of Hell of a Boss, Murder Drones, and Lackadaisy, many wanted to take a shot at the genre and therefore be a part of the modern age of indie animation that these previous shows have begun. Regardless, animation is a medium, and indie animation has taken it to a higher level to the point where we should call it a major. I am in no way stating that indie animation has the potential to replace traditional animation, but we're living in a new era of time where our creativity and effort are free to access easily. Anyone can become an animator, and I believe YouTube is a great foundation for those aspiring animators to make those dreams come true, even without major studio support. Since then, many pilots, pitches, short videos, and teasers for upcoming projects have spawned all over the YouTube algorithm.
I'm the old Norm. I want normal beer.
Some of them just starting out at a humble rate, while others already gaining an instant cult following. Though, when the topic of indie animation becomes a powerhouse for the algorithm, that's really not the main purpose of it. You see, it's all about creativity, original ideas of all factors that make a great online series, built with the effort of animators, voice actors, artists, and editors, that is. There are so many wonderful pieces of indie animation I'd like to cover, but today I'll be starting out with the one that inspired me to create the Indiehemius review series, and that is Fanny and the Pack. When Newgrounds artist Montana Yerger, or should I say Starlight Comics, wanted to make an animated web series inspired by the charm of early 60s cartoons, such as those from Hanna-Barbera and especially Jay Ward, Fanny and the Pack was the answer, based on one of his characters from a previous game he developed, Busty Bunny the Bounty Babe.
Bunny boobies!
Yes, he's also a game developer, so that's a 2-for-1 deal. Fanny and the Pack is about a fennec fox and her misadventures in the life of crime with her gang. Set in the era where such influential figures of crime like Al Capone reigned supreme, the show mostly revolves around the pack of foxes, tormenting a small town in the West for the sake of getting rich or even. It even has its own webcomic. It feels a tad bit simple compared to most indie animations where bad guys are the main character, like for instance Hell of a Boss and Dungeon Flippers. But I honestly love the series. For a web series with only one animator and 3 voice actors, I could analyze a plethora of things that reasons why I like this show, starting from their first 6 episodes. The plot is simple enough, as all Fanny is in for is to rob a casino, but it takes a deep turn in complexity with all these factors of plans and decisions that change fate every single time. Some of them fail, while others go unexpectedly well to get themselves out of sticky situations. In this problem, one of the gang members get kidnapped by the casino boss, which leads the whole casino robbery to be a fluke. So it's a whole operation to rescue her and get back at the Red Raccoon for his greed. And while some of the story chunks can get maybe a bit too complex at times, it cushions itself with a great sense of humor. While the humor is pretty tame compared to other shows, Fanny and the Pack can actually be funny sometimes. It can break the fourth wall in the most non-obvious ways possible, and the comebacks can be quite clever. With those elements, it reminds me a lot like what Rocky and Bullwinkle were famous to have. They even interact with the narrator and decide on which one of the two titles will be used for the next episode at the end. I wouldn't say it's likely a ripoff, but I'd rather consider it to be some sort of tribute, since Jay Ward is rarely ever brought up in the animation community on Twitter as compared to Hanna-Barbera. The aforementioned is somewhat represented in the spirit of the show more, so that's quite interesting. Speaking of which, the animation plays a fine job in the series. It's simplistic, but that's what it's supposed to be, as it portrays the animation accurately to what early television animation was intended to be like in the 50s and 60s, limited. And the limited animation fits really well in Fanny and the Pack. The repeated walking cycle, along with the looping animation and solid mouth movements, are what gives this show the old school charm it holds. Even the intro for it kinda goes hard, despite being really short. I suppose that it wouldn't be long until season 2 shows them robbing that very same bank or something, I guess. The animation is also another similar thing that the classic Jay Ward cartoons possess, as him and Alex Anderson were responsible for innovating the standard of cheaper animation to be used for TV programming, which ultimately led them to create the first ever animated series in the history of television, Crusader Rabbit. I assume that Fanny and the Pack's animation was made to look cheap, but that doesn't stop it from becoming a pretty good show to watch. The characters are also quite impressive in the series. They all have their unique traits and are quite fascinating, aside from their generic roles. Like, we have the Chief of Police, for example, who's akin to Inspector Zenigata. He's also a dog, which is kinda ironic because all cops are dogs and the henchmen are dogs and yada yada. You get what I'm saying! And we also have Red, the raccoon casino boss, who's as deceitful and sabotaging as can be, which makes sense to fit him as that animal. As a villain, he's regarded as what his animal likes to eat: trash. And that's pretty good. I love a classic villain whose power corrupts the entire city and police force to fight against a gang of fox bandits after his loot. But the characters who really take the cake here are Fanny and the Pack, the gang of foxes who comply well with each other to get the job done. You could say as if they're like a family of some sorts, despite being cramped up in a small outhouse, where they lay most of their operations from here. We have Fanny, the scar-faced leader of the pack, who commands most of the crew and takes a bullet for them whenever they get captured. She looks like she'd risk everything for them, and that's honestly pretty nice to hear. We also have Fawn, the hot-headed one and a lieutenant of the team. Faith, the blonde one who also lends as much of a helping hand as she could. Fran, the young and dumb one on the team, who was the one who got herself into trouble in the first few episodes. Ferris, the pleasant peasant-looking one whom I assume goes undercover and acts as an informant to the pack. She could be the brains behind the operations as well. Fiona, the redhead. Philomena, the Latina. And we have Fortune and Fame, the identical twins of the gang. I have no idea who has the right to name their children Fortune and Fame, just like with these foxes, but it must be a nickname or a joke to match the term Fortune and Fame onto the pack, so I guess that makes sense. The last 4 characters I mentioned don't get much screen time or voice lines throughout the 6 episodes, but I'm hopeful that they'll eventually play a bigger part in the future episodes to come. I mean, aside from their assets! But since the entire plot is about saving your friends after a failed attempt at robbing a casino, I know for sure that the lead character acts like a leader. Surprising, am I right? And the subordinates act like subordinates. They even have their own clever ways of solving the problem, and most of them have their wit like Fanny does. But as much as I like to see more of the Phoenix in action, I think they really fit the criminal stereotype well, since foxes are sly and cunning, and are known for stealing eggs.
I resent that.
Oh, sorry, Ferris.
Fuck you!
I know like 2 or 3 furry friends online who have fox personas. That definitely stole my heart when I watched their epic videos. You should go check them out sometime, link in the description. Overall, I think Fanny and the Pack is a great homage to legends such as Jay Ward himself, for whom which this web series was mostly inspired by. Since they share quite a lot of similar things, I would almost consider this to be the Rocky and Bullwinkle of indie animation, and that would be considered an honor because Rocky and Bullwinkle is such a special cartoon to me that had a ginormous impact on American animation as well as we all see it today, and almost nothing could ever match the same zaniness or importance Rocky and Bullwinkle had on our society. The Rocky and Bullwinkle show was really no ordinary cartoon from the 60s. Sure, it was animated cheaply like Underdog, but in reality they're far from similarity. Rocky and Bullwinkle had their own unique formula, which pissed off networks due to it being so based. I mean, NBC wanted to get rid of the show at one point because it kept breaking the fourth wall and mocking the network in a harmless yet hilarious manner.
Hey, you can't do that!
Who say?
The network say, quote, no cannibalism on TV, unquote.
We no eat you, just roast you.
Oh, well, I guess that's okay then.
And the network-approved flames lick higher and higher.
In fact, Rocky and Bullwinkle are close to what I'd consider the Deadpool of cartoons for their common sense of wit and fourth wall breaking. Not to excuse Freakazoid or something, but at least they'd hold the title of being that of classic cartoons. They weren't afraid to fuck around and find out despite the risks. I think Fanny and the Pack has quite a road ahead if it wants to reach their peak. Like, maybe it could break the fourth wall a few more times, or perhaps add in segments that correlate to the series, or at least give more life to the other characters, especially those in the pack. Anything helps as long as it slightly improves the series, but everything else like the animation, characters, and voice acting is perfect. Like I said before, I see this web series as a tribute to Jay Ward at best, and possibly the only ever original web series I could find to be that. I really wish we could have more indie animation that could delicately replicate the early classic cartoon magic that Jay Ward and Total Television had. And Fanny and the Pack is the closest we ever got to that magic. In the end, I really liked Fanny and the Pack and its concept, and I'm hyped for whatever Season 2 brings to the table. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for tuning in to the first episode of Indiehemius, the new shirt review series presented by yours truly. And while I balance Indiehemius along with 2 other things, please be thoughtful enough to like and subscribe if you want to support me. And while the animation industry is crumbling due to the threat of AI and greedy executives, I'd like to take a moment to remind you all of what we still have left. Each other, animators, and critics alike. And as the new era of indie animation rolls in, I got a good feeling that this is only just the beginning of it all.
say?
Disney Plus, terms and conditions.
Say, quote,
You must die!
unquote.
We eat you and roast you.
Oh, well, I guess
I'm touching myself tonight.
And the
Disney's Fast Play.
lick higher and higher.